The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how you might go about subdividing a model or splitting a model so that you can measure areas at a certain distance from the central axis or the center of this bone. So first I made a model of the bone, and then I measured the length of it. So right now you're seeing the full bone, and then I made a second model that is just the shaft. Now I'm applying a clipping plane, and this clipping plane I've already selected precision move on it. And when you select precision move, that's from your right hand menu, you're going to get a choice of which plane you want to move. So, and how you want to move it. So there's the precision move menu. Now you see I've got plane 1 and plane 2. I've already selected plane 2, and I'm choosing to move it so that it rotates. But you can translate it, and you can move the center around. And it turns out that the center of the measurement line is where the label is placed telling you the length of that line. So I know where the midshaft is because of that label. So I can put that on the table and then put this clipping plane on it. Now what I'm going to do is split that. So I have to choose in the clip plane options which model I want to split. And I take the overwrite function off because I don't want to replace it. I want to keep the shaft. Just in case I screw it up, I want to be able to go up and keep that shaft. So I split it into two new models, and I'm going to label the lateral one lateral and the medial one medial. But notice I still have the blue complete shaft in case I want to delete everything and start over for some reason. Okay, so the next time I'm going to split with this clip plane, I'm going to move it 30 degrees, rotate it 30 degrees, and then split that lateral model. Precision move. Now the rotation, it's a little bit down in the table. There you go. The rotation, the degrees is illustrated right in the center where the ball is, where the center of the clipping plane is. And you can actually, when you export, if you keep that clipping plane and don't discard it, it'll tell you where that center is. It'll give an X, Y, and Z coordinate, which could later be used to measure the distance these areas are going to be away from the center. Okay, this time I'm overwriting it because I don't need that lateral model for anything. So now I've overwritten it, so I split it into two. This is the area, the first area that's encompassed by an arc of 30 degrees. I'm going to relabel it so that I don't get them confused. I'm going to call this 1. So I just chose to do it like you would the hands of a clock. So this is the first split of that shaft. And then the procedure, you just go from there. So the medial, you could split the medial one right now. You could go to the operations and split the medial one right now. And, label the split that comes off of that as 6. I found that confusing when I tried to do that. It was just too much for me. I decided I would rather just work on one side of that shaft at a time. So that's how I chose to do it. But you can do it any way you want, of course. So you have to pay attention because here we go. If you forget to move that every single time, or sometimes that little drop-down menu, if you don't get the right one, then it causes all kinds of problems. You'd have to select that correct model that you want to operate on each and every time, and then you have to make sure that when you go to the operations, you have that selected. And if that sometimes the drop-down menu didn't pop back up. If it doesn't do that, then the operation won't happen. You always know when the operation happens because you see that little Elucis ECG type thing. So now we have a split of that lateral into another. This will be the second. And I also found it nice to keep to take the 3D models off, but keep the 2D models on so that you can see the colors change. You can see the and it's just to help keep track with the labeling a little bit. We're going to put this video on YouTube, so it's possible to just sort of speed through it. You know, you don't have to watch me. It's the same. You're repeating the same operation again and again. I actually made a mistake in this video in forgetting to move it to the lateral. So, and you can see what happens when you forget to do that. Later. One thing you can do is when you take those clipping planes off, you know, you'll want to put them back on, but you can take them off right there, and that way you can really see, you can make the model clippable or not clippable, and that way you can see, you know, exactly how you've split it. One thing I would note is if you turn loose of that pen as you're swinging it around, you turn loose of it a little bit too soon, it doesn't remember, you know, it immediately resets at 0. So it's good to make sure that you don't stop turning or rotating the clipping plane until you've got the angle that you really want. Now you see there, I actually split it twice by accident. I didn't see the little squiggly, I was looking somewhere else. So this sort of screwed me up for a little bit, but it doesn't matter, I just have to delete one of those splits. I've got an extra split in there now. And it confused me because I didn't realize I did that. So the movie's going to drag out a little bit here until I figure out. Because it says split 4, there's 4 and then 5 and 6, but 6 is really going to be what's remaining of that lateral model, the model that's called lateral. So that split down there is not 6. That should just be deleted. See how that's a problem, because that was just a mistake on my part. You know, I have this is brand new software, so I'm learning to use this as well as you. So we're, you know, it's not surprising that I make mistakes and have to go back and redo it, but this is where I finally figure out what I did wrong. And it's unfortunate because the new split is yellow, but it's the same color as that medial, just coincidentally. So it looks like I was just like, what did I actually split on that clipping plane? You know, I knew I had done something wrong, but I didn't have the advantage of watching the movie at that point. So to see what I had pushed incorrectly. Okay, now we're back on track where we've got the first side, the lateral one, split into sections 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to start doing the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing on the medial now. So instead of clipping the lateral, doing the operation on the lateral, the model that's named lateral, do the same thing, but this time on the medial. So that's worked perfectly. You see how the menu didn't immediately pop down? It won't execute if that's happening. So you can't be too fast. Ooh, I might have clicked twice there too. It might be something I'm doing with a pen. Yeah, see, I've accidentally hit that twice. So I think I'm confused again because I just didn't see it. You know, it's not like I tried to activate that twice. So I'm like, now what did it really split it into? Why do I have two splits? Sorry about this, students, but it does, you know, take quite a while to record this, and I thought, well, you know, you might make these same mistakes, and then if you watch me make them, you'll know to be careful, and you'll know what to do about them. So Yeah, I've gotten so many models on here now that the menu is starting to show up down in the table. So if you click on the padlock at the top of this left-hand menu, you can anchor it in space. And that way you don't have to have it sort of interfering with what your working space on the desktop. Also, one thing that was happening to me, I didn't realize it, but I was putting one controller in front of the other, and these controllers both need to be visible by the headset. And if they aren't, if one is in front of the other, the headset gets confused in terms of depth, and it will cause your model to start jumping around a little bit. So the menu would just start jumping back into the distance. But once I realized I needed to keep those controllers somewhat separate and in view of the headset, that problem went away from me for me. And locking it helped to do that. The other thing that I noticed was as I was working, the sunlight would change in the room that I was working in. And so the headsets are running on infrared, and changes in light affect them. And sometimes that makes it difficult. You know, the program will get glitchy, partly because the headset is having a hard time just giving you that 3D sense of space. I'm just trying to be careful and check out that I've split it the way that I want to, or I thought that I split it. So that's why I'm taking the clipping planes on and off. Just two more. So you can't see it as clearly as I can, but when I take the 3D off, then I can see the coloring that's on the table from the 2D model. And I know, okay, that really is in position 10. And last one. Okay. You have to be a little bit careful here because you can accidentally grab, it's this putting the labeling right where the clipping plane is. So you can see I made that clipping plane rather small, the edge of it. It's partly it will clip throughout the whole data set. So it doesn't matter how big that plane is, it will do a clip of the entire data set. But it's just easier not to accidentally grab it and move it when you don't want to, if it's smaller. Okay. So I just double checking. You take this clipping plane off. Again, if you left that clipping plane in, the center of it will be reported. So that's a nice central point. And we have now divided the shaft, the mid shaft, into 12 pieces. But we want the cross-sectional area of this, remember. We don't want the area of each one of those elongated, little French fry shaped things. We want the cross-section. So we want those areas. But before I measure those, oh, actually, I think I decided to, I got anxious and did measure them before I put the voice memos on. Or did I? No, I did it right. Okay. So I started with the first voice memo being number 1, just like the cross-sectional area was. So this is going to give me an approximation of the x, y, and z coordinate to the center of each one of those little areas. And then the last one is right in the center. And again, you could have used that clipping plane. Okay, so then we can take an R and, find those distances from the center to the center of area 1, from the center of the shaft to the center of area 2, etc. And you'll notice I've got that rather lousy CA. That was me using the markup tool, just so that when I was creating the model, I kept the caudal and cranial and lateral and medial aspects of this. So now you can, if you do the measurement tool and you select area, it'll allow you to move through those and put it on clip plane. So each one of these could be, you can change the names of these and labels if you want. That's what the pen is on there for. I just decided, I wasn't sure, I thought it might be nice to make sure when I export them that I got them in the right order. So I put a label on each one. I should have really, I'm clicking, it's hard to see it, but I'm clicking on a little pen right there, and then I went back and relabeled them. But if you did this as you were applying the voice or the cross-sectional area tool, it would be easier than what I did here. Again, I left in some of these mistakes just because I thought you learn by watching, either making mistakes yourself or watching other people make mistakes. That's a good way to learn. And they move around depending upon how you hold your head. So if they're overlapping like that, you can sort of get around it by just changing the angle at which you are looking at the label. Okay, now see, it says 7 up there, 8. So now it makes more sense to just go ahead and label that right now. As you do it, than it does to put a bunch on there and then go back and label them. If you hear a lot of clicking, that's my dog running around, clicking his nails on the wooden floor. Sorry about that. Now the other one, so 12 was the remainder, right, of the medial. So I had to flip through several of those models. It wasn't just the next in line. So you really have to watch the label when it says, you know, what are you clipping? Now I try to take off the follow VR viewpoint so that you can see the screen as I export the data. Although given that you've already done this several times with some of the other assignments, this part is probably second nature to you by now. So the project panel image metrics report is what we want. We don't want it as a text file. Select JSON. You definitely want the voice memos, so that'll give the X, Y, and Z coordinates of all those voice memos that you put on. Okay, so now we're ready to take that into R.